You don't just have a playbook handed off to you, but you really have that coach on the sidelines in the franchisor. And the better you do, the better they do. They want you to succeed. They're helping them provide the best practices. They've got the team on the sidelines supporting you.
Welcome back, Millionaire University. We have a special treat for you today. We love to bring on our guests again who have brought extreme value to the show and that you've really resonated with. And so we brought back Jon Ostenson. You can check out his original episode number 95. He came on and shared with us how you can get into franchising in the non-food space. And we wanted to bring him on again just to dive a little bit deeper. He gave us great perspective on that episode about how to get into franchising. And today we're going to go into some of the very specific types of franchises that you can pursue, again, in the non-food franchising space. We were so impressed with the depth of knowledge that Jon had in that first episode 95, and we knew that he could bring even more value as we start to uncover and dissect a little bit more specificity in these different franchise options. So we're really excited to share this episode with you today. So let's get started and dive into franchising 102, if you will, or 1020 with Jon Ostenson. Let's go. Welcome back to Millionaire University, Jon. It's so great to have you again on the show. I know our listeners loved your last episode, so thanks for coming back.
Absolutely, Kirsten. No, we got a great response and really enjoyed talking with a lot of your listeners. So looking forward to doing another round here.
Awesome. So today we're coming into a little bit more, we're going to deep dive into more franchises that you may not have considered because you specialize in non-food franchising, but that's a really big scope. People might think, oh, there's very little, but there's actually a lot. So we just want to dive a little deeper. Do you want to talk about maybe about a dozen different franchises that people might have no idea they could get into?
Yeah, happy to share some examples. And I'll start out by saying we've got nothing against the food guys. We need them. My whole focus and the title of my book is non-food franchising. And my humble belief is they're just easier ways to make money that oftentimes require less capital investment, fewer employees, less operating hours. Oftentimes they carry higher margins due to not having food waste. And definitely the theme out there is businesses that aren't going out of style. And I think sometimes you think of froyo or different categories within food, they are more susceptible to consumer whim than we want understandable, cash flowing businesses that AI isn't going to disrupt tomorrow or Amazon, but things that are a little more tangible is really where most of our clients focus.
Yeah, it sounds pretty smart. And I love the opportunity and even listening to that last episode that you can, it's a business in a box is what you said, stepping into something that's already validated. And of course, it's going to be a lot of work. But I think even when we're going to talk about some of these specific niches, I would imagine, and I know you said it doesn't have to be the case, but when you have some passion or interest in the thing that you're going to invest in a business, I imagine it's more fun and maybe a little bit easier to stay connected to and invested in.
Yeah. And the beauty about franchising is, it's great if you have a passion for it. A lot of folks that we work with say, hey, we're passionate about making money. We're about providing more time and independence so I can spend that with my family. So, the why for a lot of people is a driving force. It's not always the what, but I think once they start going through the process and looking at opportunities that are actually available in their market, that's when they have that light bulb moment and they say, gosh, I never thought I would be in this industry, but that could make a lot of sense for my community, for my family. And so we see doctors getting involved in restoration businesses. We see current small business owners getting involved in things that may complement their business or totally diversify from it. And then certainly you have a lot of what I call corporate refugees that have been grinding in the 9-to-5 job and they've got a desire to step out and build their own empire. And oftentimes they're stepping into industries they don't have experience in, but the franchisor brings the experience and they bring some background and skill sets that translate over to the industry.
Yeah. So it feels a little bit like a cushion. You still have to invest the time and effort and money, obviously. But yeah, I think that sounds appealing, especially to maybe a new emerging entrepreneur. So let's dive into this. Let's get into the first one. I'm really excited to hear what these are. And I am preparing myself to not get too excited and buy a franchise by the end of the day today.
Well, we certainly have some options. And we work with over 600 different franchise companies. As you can imagine, that represents a wide variety of different industries. Really, most of the companies that are out there, they're looking to expand, that have room to expand into. I think that's a good way of defining who it is that we work with. So it's a challenge to try to narrow those down, but I'd love to just give some color on those opportunities and on what we're seeing out there. We continue to see more interest than ever before, and it spans across categories like home and property services, health and wellness, kids, pets, seniors, things that are understandable, again, that aren't going out of style, aren't going off trend anytime soon. So starting out, why don't we talk about a few in the health and wellness space? I think that's top of mind for everybody these days. And of course, that can mean a lot of different things. Health and wellness, it can mean everything from men's health, testosterone replacement therapy in a lot of circles for guys around my age and even younger. They're talking about replacing hormones and what that looks like. And so anyway, it's a highly fragmented space. And that's where the beauty of this business comes in, is it's created a brand and really pulled together best-in-class practices, proven out over several locations prior to entering the franchise world. And I think the timing is perfect for it. We've had a lot of clients buy into it. And what it looks like, the investment's a little bit heavier because you're purchasing a brick and mortar retail presence, right? It's not just a service-based business. All in investment, you're around $300,000, and that would be your franchise fee, your startup cost, and several months of working capital. The beauty of the business is it's a recurring revenue business. And from a revenue standpoint, their franchisees, they're looking at north of $1 million at really high margins, typically in the 20 to 30% range. And so you don't have to have a super large team to run it. The franchisor helps you recruit. You have to have a medical sponsor behind it. But I know we've had a lot of clients buying locations. The challenge with this one is most areas of the U.S. are now sold out. So we're a little bit late on this, but wanted to give it as an example because there are other models similar to this that are coming out in what's a highly fragmented space.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned you need to have that medical backing or that medical sign-off. What else does that look like when you're getting into the health and wellness space? Are there a lot of policies? Does the franchisor cover a lot of those things that you're just set? And is that a business model where you'd have to hire a lot of medical professionals into it? Is that where the expense might get a little bit higher?
They would help recruit for it. Largely, you need to have in this case, either a registered nurse on staff that would be the one providing the injections, and then you have a receptionist, and that's really all that you need, assuming that you're going to be somewhat hands-on as the owner, as the general manager, overseeing marketing and such. Granted, the franchisor is driving a lot of that for you.
Yeah.
It's been exciting to see a lot of our clients ramping up really fast. Again, there's just such a need in the market. And there are some states where businesses, oftentimes in the health and wellness space, to your question, would say, hey, the regulatory hurdles are a little bit high. We'll worry about those states later. Let's focus on the states where cost of doing business is a little easier.
Yeah, so you want to look at that. If you're looking into the space, make sure you're in a state where maybe it's not going to be a lot more hassle than it's worth for now to get into that type of a franchise.
Yeah, and the beauty of the franchise process is you're exploring opportunities as you get to talk to other owners in the system and hear about their experience. And that's a great data input in addition to being able to view the historical results and talking with the franchisor about how they'll support you.
Yeah. So what else do we have in the health and wellness space? If that one's a little bit tapped out, which is awesome. It's good to see that there was a high demand and now that demand is being met. Is there anything else that's buzzing that's starting to rise up in the health and wellness space that we want to jump into before that happens?
Yeah, certainly when we say health and wellness, you think of fitness. Fitness is a very well-established area. And I think in some markets, it's overly penetrated. There are a lot of concepts that are doing the same thing. But we continue to see a movement towards like group fitness classes. There's several companies that we work with out there that do a really nice job. One in particular that's just been growing incredibly fast. And again, it's a recurring revenue model for that owner, but all in investment on this one. You're actually in that same ballpark as the first one, around 300,000-ish all in, and it kicks off close to, I think it's around 800,000 on the revenue side at about a 20 to 25% bottom line. So you translate those numbers and it's a pretty healthy return. Obviously, you're building a business that you're going to be able to have an exit with one day as well. So I'd say more of those generic fitness classes that ground functional movement, strength and conditioning that people pop into several times a week is where the consumer base has moved. We're not going after the specific ones that just focus on cycling or just focus on small niche rowing, let's say. Those kind of went out of style.
Yeah, and we're talking like in-person group classes, not necessarily a virtual. Have you seen that in the health and wellness space, the virtual business model that's also franchised?
Yeah, there's a concept out there that's got several hundred locations, very well established, and they bring the trainer to your home, a convenience standpoint, which we all care about. They bring the equipment with them and the whole program, but they also offer that virtually. So it could be either in person or virtual. So I'd say you're starting to see that more in some others as well, where they're incorporating that as a piece, but still the lion's share would be the in-person classes.
Yeah, cool. It sounds fascinating. If this is, again, doesn't have to be your interest, but it is a huge growing market. And I'm glad you brought it up first because I see there's a lot of attention to this. And I think I'm on your email list. I got an email today on health and wellness. This is top of mind because we're discovering how much our health needs to be prevented before we have a lot of these issues. And people are getting a lot more conscious of what they're putting into their body, how they're treating their body. And so in my opinion, when it comes to marketing, you want to find something you're not having to convince people of, they're already out there looking for. So if you can meet that need and find a franchisor that's going to match even your community needs, something that's going to be a buzz in your local area, I can see that being pretty magical.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's something that I care a lot about too. And a lot of others that I care about that they have dispensable income too are spending more as a portion on their health and wellness. And what that looks like is the longevity movement and injectables, and whether it be hormone replacement or what have you, but it's all about prevention. That's what they call medicine 3.0. But it goes beyond just physical health. It's also mental health. There's a franchise that we work with in the mental health space, which, I mean, obviously there's a bigger need than there's ever been here the last couple of years. I think that's unfortunately not going to shrink anytime soon. And this is one, they help you recruit the counselors. You've got a small retail location in this example, and it's typically in a strip center, and you've got maybe 1,200 square feet, small offices within that for about 5 or 6 therapists or counselors. And again, they help you recruit it. It can be very passive. They do actually 90% of the work that's involved with the business for you. I'd say in most cases, you're putting in more involvement, but in this one, they make it very passive. And it's obviously been expanding rapidly. All in investment on this one, you're probably closer to $200,000. It's a little bit lower all in, but some really nice revenues and margins around it too. And you think about a business like this, it's a great way to give back to the community. It's a feel-good business. You're really helping people with where they are on that mental health side. And you mentioned the email that went out this morning with our newsletter. I do like to share opportunities in there. Again, just spur the thinking and give a flavor of what we're seeing out there. That one is straight involved in that longevity movement, and it's all about prevention, and the people are taking self-care a lot more seriously than they have in the past.
Yeah. So aside from, and maybe, is there anything else you wanted to go into in the health and wellness space that we might not have considered? I love that we've done mental health and physical health and hormones. So is there anything else in there that we can pay attention to and even be aware of that we ourselves are looking for that we could potentially build a business around?
I love what I do because I get to see all these new business models coming down the chute. So we continue to see them. We like personally for franchises to get a few locations. Let's prove it out before we go too far. But no, I'm seeing businesses like in the pre-diabetes space. And again, that's just a huge need out there, all different types of fitness. But yeah, I'd say probably where most opportunities are jumping up, it's around just that health and longevity movement, the Peter T and others have really publicized out there.
Yeah. So I want to just touch on this a little bit. When you are, and I know this might depend on the franchisor, and even the one you mentioned with mental health, they do 90% of the heavy lifting for you. Does that include market research in your area? Is that something that you're doing, or is typically that a partnership with the franchisor? Because they want you to succeed, obviously. They don't want you buying the franchise in an area where it's definitely not going to have success. So is that part of the process, and even part of what you do is making sure that you're finding that match?
Absolutely. No, we play matchmaker by looking at, for a client that lives in Boise, Idaho, what are comparable markets that would justify this model where people have done well with it? And of course, matching it with our client's background and such. The franchisor does do a good bit of the heavy lifting when it comes to that. So they'll look at the demographics. They've got access to the technology at the zip code level and can help determine, hey, here are the number of potential addressable customers you have, whether it be consumers or businesses, and the characteristics around those. So they help from that standpoint, as well as sharing, hey, are there other big players in your market today, and how do we compete versus them? I do encourage clients to do some of their own research once they're pretty far down the track with an opportunity. We want them to do within their market research, maybe do some secret shopping, go visit the competition. I had a client recently on Long Island that had purchased a property services business. And prior to purchasing, he said, I know there's some other companies that do the same thing out in the area. So we'll get some quotes, have them come out. And so he had 4 companies come out. And he said, out of those, there's only one that I would really consider a strong competitor. The others, I'm not worried about. I said, why don't you poach some of the best people from that competitor? I think he liked that idea. Yeah, but he was off to the races after that.
That's awesome.
It's a tag team approach.
Yeah, love it. Because I think, again, that boils down to, or just creates a little bit more appeal in the franchise model than just going into it yourself. Even if you're a seasoned business owner, there's so many factors that you don't know, right? And the questions you don't even know to ask, and the research you don't know what to do. So I love that. Again, I love that little trampoline under you that you can land on.
I was just going to say, that is the beauty. You don't just have a playbook handed off to you, but you really have that coach on the sidelines in the franchisor. And as you said, the better you do, the better they do. They want you to succeed. They're helping them provide the best practices. They've got the team on the sidelines supporting you. But it goes beyond that. You've got other franchisees living the same thing in their local markets day in and day out. And you're constantly exchanging best practices. When I was a franchisor and I am a multi-brand franchisee, with those perspectives, I've seen firsthand how franchisees support each other, and the better one does, it helps the other. They're very open to sharing what they're learning and best practices. Again, you can speed up that ramp up and speed up the profitability build as well. So it's cliche to say, but you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Oh, I love that. Good tagline. Okay, so what are some other niches that we may not have considered in this non-food franchising space?
Yeah, I'd say in the kids space, people will always spend on their kids. People are always going to have kids. And so that sector's not going away. But oftentimes we think about daycares, we think about different math tutoring or specialized computer training for kids. There's a lot of opportunities in the space. One that I've had a number of clients do very well in that I really is in the youth soccer space. So youth enrichment through sports. And just a great team behind this one. They built out 13 corporate locations before ever franchising it, and really just have some amazing numbers. And what it does in a community, it's not looking to replace the soccer league in most cases, but it complements it. And so they're providing lessons and clinics and camps in conjunction with the formal soccer league, and using their fields, using parks, using schools. So you don't have to have the physical location. It's much more service-based. There's so many out there that have an interest and a background in soccer that are, great part-time coaches for this program. They've got curriculum for all ages. And we've just seen some big numbers from an investment standpoint. You're on the lower end, probably 100,000 to 150, but you build up a couple of territories and you're pushing 7 figures at a very healthy bottom line margin.
Wow.
And most of our clients that we placed have come back and bought additional locations, which I always love seeing that, additional territories as we would define it. That's a great validator of success. Like where that's playing, certainly the World Cup's coming to the U.S. In 2026, though. I think that the trend is only going to move more and more towards soccer.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Is it similar, or am I thinking a totally different thing to club soccer? Like when you have your city leagues, but then you have the more intensive, you're paying into this a lot more money to play year round, or is that a little bit different?
I'd say it's a little bit different. Again, we're focused on kind of the younger kids space, like 4-year-olds all the way up to teenagers. Oftentimes parents are looking, to your point, on the year-round piece. What do they do outside the soccer season if soccer is their sport? Or during the soccer season, we all know parents get really competitive on trying to be better than their peers through sometimes a little bit vicariously through their kids. And so it serves as a complement, a way for their child to carry that sport further. And the same company behind this has a few other franchises actually that are involved in different sports, but soccer is the main one.
Cool. And you mentioned regions, like some people come and buy multiple regions. Is this something that you can do, I don't want to say remotely, but if you were to start something like this in your area, are we talking like a totally different region and out of state? Is it easy to run from a different location?
Territories, every franchise system has a different definition of the territory, but oftentimes in a service-based business, it might represent 250,000 in population as an example. It is very common for new owners to purchase multiple territories up front. That way they protect them, if you will. No one else can buy them, and it gives them a path to scale. But you do have some cases where maybe they only bought 1 or 2 up front, and some other territories around them remained open and they came back and bought more. We do have some folks that we work with that will purchase out of state, but I'd say it's much more common to cluster it in. You can share employees, share marketing, all of that. But in a city like Atlanta, where I'm based, it may consist of 8 territories. And maybe I want all of Atlanta, right? Yeah. But when you think about, and depending on the business, you're running routes and it's not very efficient. You want to start your marketing efforts in a couple of zip codes and then start to expand from there. And that's what drives the bottom line.
Interesting. That's really cool. That's not one that I would have thought of as a franchise model. So I'm already mind blown on that. And I have a son who loves soccer. So that would be really cool to even involve him in something like that. What else have we got in the kids space?
In the kids space, we've got swim lessons. We have, like I said, a lot of different tutoring type businesses. Certainly from a larger investment standpoint, you have businesses like trampoline parks, which my kids personally love, and they would love for me to own one of those myself, I'm sure. But just a lot going on in the youth enrichment space. And I always joke that people will spend on their kids and on their pets, right? And for some people, their pets are their kids. Yeah. But there are some in the pet space that they're just blowing up. Ever since COVID, say the C word, ever since then, the pet industry has totally exploded. It's about almost $100 billion industry today. And a lot of franchises are focused in areas like grooming, and that may be on-site grooming, oftentimes through a membership model, or that may be where they come to you. And it's, of course, I think of Dumb and Dumber, right? With with the dog van, right? But those do very well. Oftentimes it's a recurring revenue type model as well. One that I like in the dog space oftentimes would go overlooked, again, just when you think about dogs, is the dog training space. And there's a franchise that we've had clients do very well with, and they've continued to expand territories. And business like that, it doesn't require a physical location. Certainly you can add boarding and other things to it, but the core of the business is really the dog training. And it's for individuals. They also train dogs, canines for the police and for the blind and others out there. And yeah, large addressable market. We don't personally have a dog. I've got a lot of family members that have dogs. They all have to get them trained. We do have one family member that has dogs that are not trained, and that's unfortunate. But with this business, all in investment, you get in for around $100,000. In some cases, even below that. Franchisees are averaging about $700,000 in revenue, like a 25% bottom line margin.
Wow.
So that's can be a great income for someone to step into for a very low investment.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's fascinating. And I have 2 dogs, and they could both benefit from some training. So that might also be on the docket for our family. Who knows?
Absolutely. And the beauty there is you start a dog training business. Like I said, you can add in boarding, you can add in grooming. There are a lot of ways to bring in complementary businesses. As an example, we had a client that bought into an in-home senior care business about a year ago out west, and they came back 6 months in and said, hey, what's a great business that could complement what we're currently doing? I introduced them to one that provides wheelchair ramps and stair lifts and retrofitting all the different bars in the bathroom and such from a mobility standpoint, because what is that macro trend? People want to age in place. They don't want to go into nursing homes. And so if you already have a customer base you're providing in-home care services to, companion care largely, what a great addressable market to be able to provide some of these mobility solutions as well.
Yeah, that's really smart. And it touches on solving the same problem, but in just a different way. So you can be a little bit more diverse in, really, it looks like a lot more customer care too. So that's really cool.
One more example along those lines, we had a real estate broker that we were working with that came to us and said, hey, right now I'm having to refer out a lot of clients for property management services. It makes a lot of sense for us to start a property management company. Should I do it on my own and learn everything the hard way? Or is there a franchise that I should plug into? And we ended up introducing him to the one that he eventually went with, and I couldn't be happier a couple of years into it. But again, those are examples of complementary type businesses. In some cases, see folks that will go totally diverse. They'll do something in property services and do something in health and wellness. So there are a lot of different approaches to it.
Yeah, and when you mentioned scalability, I'm just curious to know the scalability option when you have the franchise and you want a complementary thing and you don't go the franchise route, or you've bought this franchise and you want to add additional income streams. What is the legality with that? You have to start a completely different business over here. Can you use the same location to sell maybe other products that you want to personally sell that are not part of the franchise? Is there any overlap there that you can do?
Yeah, it's a great conversation to have with the franchisor, and you want to understand going into kind of what the limitations are. A lot of franchise systems do have a large offering, and they would say, hey, start with these services, but you can always add these others over time. Some cases, an innovative franchisor is going to say, hey, I love the idea of you testing these additional things still under the brand name. But there are situations where it is very off-brand, the service that you're wanting to provide, and it would need to be under a different brand name or flag, if you will. So it depends. But ultimately, when you think about the franchisor, they care about that brand standard. They want to make as much money as they can, and they make money by you making money. So if you're able to increase your revenue streams through business that's not going to take your eye off the ball, and that's creating referrals to your core business, that's going to benefit them in the end.
Yeah, makes total sense. I'm curious, just jumping back into the kid space, because this is a really big growing market. And I know we want to look at that when we're creating offers online and businesses. The homeschool space. I personally homeschool. Have you seen any franchises that fit within that model?
There are some that provide more of a traditional little day school, Montessori school. I have not personally seen one that caters specifically to homeschooling, but I think of an example here, again, around a business that's almost like an outsourced PE department. And they will go into daycares, into elementary schools and bring all the equipment, provide that PE situation for them. And yeah, they can do that with homeschools as well. I'm sure you're part of a homeschooling group. And so it's a network that there's strength in numbers, and you can bring in outside players like this. So I haven't seen one that caters exactly to homeschooling, but between businesses like that and a lot of tutoring businesses, there are ways that I think homeschoolers can be supported.
Yeah. Maybe you go into that route. You build a whole business model and a whole franchise yourself that you can serve that market with.
I was thinking you could do that. You're
maybe.
the expert in this space, right? We'll join efforts. I'll
go.
bring the franchise expertise.
I love it. After the call, we're going to start a whole new business model. Okay, so yeah, jumping back into the path that we were on, I love that we've touched on so many different niches. What else can we explore that maybe some people might not consider when they're initially thinking franchising?
I didn't spend much time on the senior care space, but just touch on that. And then I'd love to dig into the home and property services space because that's just where we've seen so much interest. In the senior space, we probably had a dozen clients purchase in-home health senior services last year. There's just such demand. 10,000 people turning 75 every day, again, wanting to age in place. And so there's a franchise that a lot of our clients have got involved with that has built a better mousetrap, if you will. The founder had been in the industry for 30 plus years and said, hey, there's a better way of doing things. Brought that expertise in, built a team around him, and proved out a model in which a franchise owner would be much more of a matchmaker. They're doing a needs assessment of what the family needs, the hours that are needed and such in the care services, and then they're recruiting for that. So it's like you got two key people, a business development person, you've got a recruiter, and then so you're playing matchmaker. Now you get ongoing revenue on a per hour basis, but you're ultimately not the employer of record. The family's the employer of record, but instead you're running payroll almost like a vendor on the backside. So people have liked that. There's some caveats to it, but that's been a highly successful model. So I think whenever you have a large addressable market, you're able to find a new way of doing things. That's appealing to a lot of people. But shifting gears, let's talk about home and property services. Yeah. I'd say there's no general umbrella industry that's been more popular over the last couple of years. And I joke that non-sexy is the new sexy. So it's things like insulation and dumpsters and flooring and paint that is just resonating with so many, such diverse backgrounds. And maybe they're a B2B salesperson today and they're bringing that experience with them. But in a lot of cases, again, it's doctors, it's folks that don't have the business experience, but they're saying, hey, I want to stretch that intellectual curiosity and have the franchisor really be the subject matter expert and the industry expert. So just thinking of a few examples there, I love the niches. There's a beautiful home services business that I've been involved with. I'm actually a small minority owner in it that's been growing really rapidly. And that, again, people wanting to age in place, they live in their kitchen, right? They want more space. This is a business that provides custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries. They do the manufacturing, they do everything. Very non-salesy, very consultative approach. A lot of stay-at-home moms are great designers for this business where they set their own schedule and they go in and really have a conversation, find out how someone uses their kitchen, and then they're able to put together a solution. Obviously, it's all technology driven. We have them in our house. We absolutely love the product. Yeah. So business like that is a niche. On the B2B services side, business to business, think of a business that provides temporary walls. So think about when you're in airports or in retail, hospitals, you always see renovation projects going on, containment walls around those. It probably never crosses your mind that there's a business to be had there. Yeah. It's almost like an equipment rental business. So going in, setting up the walls, taking them down at the end, but collecting those monthly checks along the way. Great little recurring revenue model. And again, a highly fragmented space that's more product-based. And now they're providing a service around that. We've had clients do very well with that and continue to purchase more territories. So those are two quick examples. I'd love to dig into a few more.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the temporary wall. As an entrepreneur, you do look at things a little bit differently, and there's always things I'm glancing at and being like, that's somebody's business. We're driving down the road the other day and we saw all these cars and semi-trucks, and I'm like, somebody was in charge of the tires. They have a tire business. Somebody's in charge of building the semi-trucks. Somebody runs the company. It's just so fascinating to me. And then to consider these are franchise models as well, where you don't have to go learn everything about the model. It may just be something you can step right into. You have some capital to invest and boom, you have a business. So that's really cool. Who would have thought? I wouldn't have thought. Now we'll never look at those the same.
When you're out driving, you probably park in a parking lot, right? At some point, there are parking lots all around us. Someone's got to maintain those parking lots. And there's a great franchise that I'm actually a franchisee of up in Minneapolis. So it's remote. I'm pretty passive in this one, but provides concrete and asphalt paving and line striping, like for parking spaces and wayfinders. They're always fixing bumps here and there and top coating, and that kind of stuff needs to be done about every 2 or 3 years, and most more new line striping. Such B2B services model, a lot of people like that type of attribute, highly fragmented space, and they've come in and really gained great market share, great margins on that business. Had clients do well. You probably don't think about these. Fencing, gutters. We've had clients do very well in these spaces, high margins, The fencing's a little bit lower margin, but it's high revenue. So you still end up with a great margin dollar. But these are businesses you can get involved in oftentimes for $200,000, in some cases even below that. And they can be $1 million businesses. We've had multiple clients do over $1 million in revenue in their very first year, oftentimes at 20 to 25% margin. About half of those that we work with are stepping in as what we call owner-operators and running the business themselves, maybe leaving their W-2 job. Others are putting a manager in place day one, what we call semi-passive or executive model. Now, it takes a lot of work. I won't sugarcoat it, standing up a business. There's a lot that goes into it. But the beauty of franchising is if you get plugged in with a strong franchise system and you have a good operator in place, you're able to keep your day job or keep your focus on your current business because you've got a team now supporting that manager. Buck still stops with you as the owner, but the franchisor is able to carry a lot of that support water on a day-to-day basis in your place.
Wow. And here on Millionaire University, our aim is to graduate rich, not broke. And I can see even having kids that are going to be stepping into adulthood very soon, you can look at putting $150,000 to $200,000 into school, or you could put it into a franchise. So it almost looks like a stepping stone to prepare for something like that. If they can work through some of these younger years and save money so they can invest in a franchise, it's a big chunk of change that an 18-year-old may not have offhand. But to be able to step into a business, learn that, work hard, be an entrepreneur, and have a really substantial income compared to going to school, getting into debt, maybe learning something, not knowing what you're going to come out going to do, and then being more in debt as you build your business or build some kind of an income, get a job paying less than 6 figures. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's a lot of work. I definitely can see that, but I can totally see the appeal, even if you're younger or you're wanting to maintain that 9 to 5. So thanks for breaking that down a little bit more too.
Yeah, there's so many out there that are thinking the same way you are, Kirsten, that either skipping school or maybe they're coming out of school or maybe they've worked a few years, but the idea of building a business that their kids can be involved in and play a role in. Of course, that's one excuse to bring them closer together if you set things up and have the right expectations up front. But yeah, that's a very common approach that we see.
Yeah. So you mentioned you want to go a little bit more into a few of these home-based franchises. So what else have you seen that you're excited about?
There are models such as tiny homes out there in the market.
Oh, yeah.
There's a housing shortage of between 4 and 6 million units out there. Tiny homes, it's a more affordable way. Those are cropping up in different markets. But again, it's a fragmented space. You don't have a large player yet. And we've got one that we work with that's been growing incredibly fast. A lot of markets are being sold out, but there's still some availability. But it's not just homes. They also have, it could be a pool house in the back. It could be a home office out back where you want to be detached. It could be a mother-in-law suite. It can be a gym. A lot of end uses. So you'll continue to see these crop up more and more. You don't have to have any business background for this one other than being willing to follow the system. And I'll make a point there. When I was a franchisor and I looked across our owners that were running the same business day in, day out, the qualifications or the qualities that made the most successful franchisees were the ones that were good with people. There were somebody people wanted to work with, whether it be customers, employees, vendors, but they also followed the system. And that sounds cliche, but it's so true. That's why you're buying into a franchise system. So yeah, love the tiny homes. Another one, this one's a little bit about larger investment. You're probably spending $600,000 or $700,000, but it's heavy CapEx where you can get tax benefits from it. It's a business in the dumpster space. We've had clients do very well on the residential side with dumpsters. Again, fragmented market. No one's marketing those very well. So if you come in, they've just figured out how to gain market share. But this one's more on the B2B services side. They already have national accounts and a lot of relationships in place that you can draft off of. They've created a whole new way of how companies can use dumpsters. A lot of times the pricing can be very confusing. They've built bigger dumpsters where they charge by weight, and therefore there are fewer trips to the landfill, less downtime, less hauling cost. They end up saving the customer about 20% bottom line. So whenever there's a tangible benefit like that and a competitive advantage, that's something I gravitate towards.
Who would have thought again? Why is the buy-in so much higher on something like that? Just cost of product, obviously, investment into those kinds of things?
Exactly. It'd be the truck and then the canisters, containers you start out with. You typically probably be in the 50 container range. There's a cost to those. You are able to accelerate depreciation on them. There's some tax benefits. And with business ownership, that's the beauty of it too. We're talking about building cash flow, whether it be for your kids or for yourself. Also building an asset that you'll be able to sell one day, right? Yeah. You're building towards an exit. And that may be to an adjacent franchisee. That may be out there on the open market. Third thing is, I call it the trifecta: the cash flow, the exit, but then you receive tax benefits as a business owner the tax code is written in favor of small business owners, not W-2 employees, because they want people creating jobs out there. And so if you align yourself with the government from a tax standpoint, there's so many benefits. All three of my kids are on our payroll, things to justify them being on our payroll, but it allows me, just in that example, to get a tax deduction. Then my kids, we keep them below the income thresholds. They're not having to pay taxes, but instead they can roll that into a Roth IRA. So our young kids they have Roth IRAs that we've been investing in the last couple of years. So you can really set the next generation up for success in multiple ways, one of them being through the tax side.
Yeah, I love that, especially as a homeschool mom. Younger kids, that's definitely up our alley, something we want to start doing. And in my own business models, I'm definitely looking into ways that we can hire them into the business. And I think something like this that you can have more tangible, whether they're working in the business, actually having that job, or they're working on the back end with you and starting to learn some of those entrepreneurship skills. I think that's a really cool way to involve and build long-lasting income. And even to your point, I know you mentioned this on the last episode, it's a lot easier to sell a franchise than it is to maybe sell a business that you built yourself, because it's known, it's established, and you can plug them into those systems, even if it's secondhand being plugged into that business. So I love that. I love the resellability of the franchise as well. Do you have anything else in the home space or even another niche you want to dive into, or have we covered a lot of ground?
We've covered a lot of territory. There's always new models coming down.
Yeah.
I think of one that's in the tanning space. They use totally non-toxins. It's a professional way of going about sunless tanning. It's models like that, again, aren't top of mind until you see them right in front of you. And that's the beauty of what we get to do with our clients. We take them through a very short, streamlined process and introduce them to the top dozen or so opportunities that are available in their market that we think can be a good fit for their background based on what they've shared with us. They narrow those down. We pick a few to talk with, and then there's a whole process of discovery after that where we're holding their hand through it. The beauty of a Kirsten is we don't charge them the franchise fee is the franchise fee, whether they go through us or go directly. We simply get a referral fee on the back end from the brand, and none of that gets passed on. So yeah, we love being able to open people's eyes and help them have this light bulb moments all around the country. And we love the track record that it's produced. Yeah,
amazing. I'm glad that you do that. It's a really cool win-win-win, it feels like, for everybody. And what a cool thing that you've done. We'd love to have you on again just to share the back end of your business and how you got into that side of things and really became this middleman and what your profitability looks like. Because I'm sure you've got those multiple income streams. You said you're a franchisee. Are you a franchisor as well? Do you own some that you franchise out?
So I was a franchisor at the very beginning. When I left a public company and stepped into a private company, I stepped into a franchise system, Shelf Genie, and had the opportunity to serve as their press, support all of our franchise owners. And that's when I had my light bulb moment. I said, hey, I love this model. There's so much to it, and I really fell in love with it, and just saw how many these diverse backgrounds, they could all run a common system together. So I was a franchisor. I am invested in some franchisors, but by and large, it's more on the franchisee side now that I play.
Cool. And obviously, like you said, light bulb moment, you saw a need. Let's get these franchisors matched up with the right people and really create opportunity for all around. So I'm glad you do it. I'm glad that you've come on again to share with us. I know I've had a lot of aha moments. I'm sure our listeners have too. Diving deeper into some of these niches where we can explore the franchising option. So I know we've directed to all of your things before, we've run ads with you. Where can they go find out more and even link to your book and all of those good things?
Yeah, if you come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, FRAN bridgeconsulting.com, share your email address. We'll reach out to you and share a digital copy of our book. And if you'd like to have a conversation and see if it's the right time and like to learn a little bit more about franchising, I'd be happy to jump on with you. Just let us know when my assistant reaches out, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Thanks again, Jon, for bringing so much value again to our listeners. We really appreciate you coming on.
Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, Kirsten.
Of course. Thank you so much again to Jon and our other show sponsors for this episode. I love learning, as I'm sure all of you guys do as well, and being able to get more into the details and in depth of different opportunities in the franchising space was really eye-opening for me. We never want to downplay the amount of work and effort that goes into building a business. And I love that Jon, while giving us some vision and opportunity, was also very upfront and honest about how much work is going to go into even a franchise business. Because at the end of the day, you are an entrepreneur, you are building something. It's just part of the building has been done for you. So you get to step into something that's semi-established and turn it into an income stream. I hope as you listen to these different specific niches within franchising, it got your wheels spinning and maybe considering things you hadn't thought of before when it came to building a business in this way. I also love that Jon made it clear that some of these can exist while you still have your 9-to-5 job, and that you can come in and find the place that's most flexible and fits for you with passive or semi-passive or your entire career path. So thank you so much again, Jon, for bringing that passion and that expertise with us again to an episode of the Millionaire University podcast. Until the next one, you guys, class dismissed.